definitely sets the bar high. I think for the management directorate, he is the glue that helps us stay together and ensures we're rowing in the same direction. And there is no more unwavering service to enabling the DHS mission than Chip Fulghum. So the honorable and award-winning Chip Fulghum.
How are you? All right, so did you see them all run out the door when they saw me? So normally I go first and then they go. Today they went first and then I go, so it'll be a test to see how well I do and see how synced up I am with these folks. But it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Sorry to mess with your schedule. Originally when you were supposed to see me, I was all that stood between you and being done. Settle down, that's not the case anymore. You still got those smart guys sitting over there after me. But what I wanted to do today was talk to you a little bit about management, the directorate, what we are looking to do, and how the CFO community fits into that. First of all, how many of y'all are budget people? Okay, all right, there's the budget people. How many of you are accountants? Okay, so you'll be looking to see if I get down to the penny. Are there any cost people here? Oh, look, and they all sit together. Of course they do. They have to travel and pack. How about risk management, internal control type folks? Oh yeah, see they spread out because they got the room covered. I got it. Did I miss any discipline? Did I miss one? How about the programming community?
Systems.
Oh yeah, the systems folks. Any systems folks in here? Financial systems modernization, is that you guys? Look, they sort of just raise their hand like this. All right, well, whether you're a systems guy or a budget person or a coster, what you do is vitally important to the department. And I think by the time I'm done, you'll see how you fit into, regardless of what line of business you're in within CFO, how you fit into management's priorities. Because hopefully you got from them the basic theme of they all need one another. And they can't do the things that are important to them without the support of the other lines of business. And so when you look at what we're trying to do as a directorate, it's the same thing. We're very good functionally. And what I mean by that is, if you're a CFO at the component, you've got a very strong relationship with your counterpart at the headquarters. Whether you're in risk management and insurance, or you're an accountant, or you're the budget guy or coster, there's a very strong functional relationship. And that's true across every line of business. They all have a very strong functional relationship, probably the best in the department. When you look at those entities that are supporting elements, whether it's leg affairs, public affairs, pick privacy, pick one, we're probably the model for how you build strong functional integration from the headquarters down to the component level. Where we're not so strong is going this way, going across the lines of business, because we all get busy in our own worlds and forget about the fact that we need other lines of business to help us. And so one of the things that we've been working on really hard for the last, I'd say three plus years, is this integration across the lines of business. Making sure that from the leadership level on down, they understand how important it is to support each other and support each other's efforts. And so we started with, well, what is it that we're trying to do? What is our focus? What are our priorities? So there are three basic things, and these aren't rocket science. The first is, whatever we do, we want to be good at it. We want to be excellent in whatever we do. If you're a cost estimator, we want you to build the best, most reliable cost estimate you can build. If you're an accountant, we want you to get every penny right every day. So whatever we do, we want to be excellent at it. The second thing is that we want folks to realize that what you do every day enables the mission of this department. You are the silent partner that that enables the mission of this department, whether you realize it or not. Every day, what you do matters. And it matters to those frontline operators. Whether you're the person that's chasing them another dollar, or you're the person that's making sure our books are correct, or you're the person that makes sure we've got good controls in place, regardless, each one of the lines of business within CFO and each one of the lines of business that you heard from up here enable the mission of the department. Don't ever forget that. If you don't remember anything else I said, remember that. You are vitally important to the success of the mission of this department. And if you can't see yourself and how you support the mission of this department, you really need to talk to your boss, talk to your co-workers, because you ought to be able to see how you add value every day. And how you help, in some small way, contribute to the overall mission success. And then the third thing we're trying to do is innovate for the future. You know, at DHS, I was just meeting with some folks, and I was telling them about how whatever the new thing is, typically 5 years later, DHS shows up to the party as most people are walking out the door. Because they've been to the party, they've already done it, they've been there. Whether it's agile software development, which we now go, hey, we develop our software in an agile fashion. Well, the rest of the government's been developing their software in an agile fashion for probably 5 to 7 years. We're just now getting to that party. We want to be the first ones to the party. So one of the things that I've asked Stacy to do is look at artificial intelligence. Look at robotic processing automation. Yeah, artificial intelligence.
What is
yes.
it?
Yeah, I know.
I probably have a lot of
We'll
that.
have to work on it a little bit. But because we're at the forefront of that now. How can we leverage those things to be more innovative? Because ultimately what we're trying to do in the CFO world is get out of the transaction business and get into what I call the intellectual capital business, right? Which is in data analytics, decision support, and those things. And when I say get out of the transaction business, I'm not just talking about debits and credits. In your line of business, think about how often you move data around. In the budget world, how many systems do you take information from and move them somewhere else? I call that transactional work. It's important work, but we ought to be able to get machines to help us do that in an automated way so that we can do that higher order of work called analytical decision support. So that's what we're pushing towards when I talk about innovation, especially as it relates to CFO. So I could talk to you about a variety of priorities that we have. I'm going to talk to you about 5 very briefly. The first one is, and this is where CFO is at the forefront, is developing modernized business processes, systems, and data. So think about that. So it's not just about financial systems modernization. Sorry, where are my 3 that are working on financial systems? Yeah, I know it's important, but it's not just about modernizing our systems. We need to do that, and we're going to do that, by the way. The department's going to deliver on that. You can write it down. It's going to happen. We're going to get, and I'm sure she talked to you about it today, we're going to get TSA up and running on a system. We're going to get the Coast Guard next. And then we're going to get ICE and its customers up on a new system, and then we're going to get FEMA up on a new system. It's going to happen. The pacing factor today is simply one thing. Does anybody know what it is?
Funding.
Say it a little louder.
Funding.
Money. That's the pacing factor. Because Congress doesn't want to give us any more money. Why would they? Have we delivered so far? No. I'd be skeptical about giving this money too. So we got to deliver on TSA and the Coast Guard. And when we do, then we'll be able to go to them and say, okay, we've regained your trust and credibility. Now give us the money. We're just not in any position to do that right now. But we're going to deliver on modernized systems. But it's more than that. We need to work on our processes. Because when you look at what y'all been able to accomplish in terms of audits, 6 straight clean opinions across the department, where are the accountants at? That's pretty cool. But by the way, it wasn't just the accountants. Where are the budget people at? That's right. The budget people have helped in that. If these lines of business were still here, the property guy helped in that. The human capital folks have helped in that. And by God, the procurement folks have certainly helped in that in terms of helping us close out contracts. So, 6 straight clean opinions is cool, right? There's a big old department over there that lives in a 5-sided building that can't figure out how to do it. We're only 15 years old and we've got 6. So that's a remarkable achievement. But that's not good enough. Because as the accountants know, what does a financial statement audit tell you? What does it tell you? It tells you 1 day out of the year, you got it right. So what it tells you? Whole heck of a lot of work because it's the last day of the year, but it tells you on that day, you can trust our books. Now, what about the other 364 days? That's where those processes come in, where we need better business processes and we need to eliminate those material weaknesses. Did Stacy talk to y'all about material weaknesses? So when the department was formed, we had 18 of them. Where are the internal control people again? So a material weakness is what? It's bad. They're bad. Now, they were about to stand up and give you an hour-long dissertation on what material weakness is. So you can thank me later for stopping them. But it's bad. They're bad. We had 18, we're down to 2. Now, why does that matter? Because when we fix those 2, and we're going to fix those 2 by 2020, we're going to fix those 2. We'll then be able to do something no other federal agency in the government can do. Y'all know what that is? Get a clean opinion over internal controls over financial reporting. As we are required to do by law. We are the only department that's required to do it by law. So we're actually going to go from worst to first. And then that will tell you that we have good processes, which means anytime you look at our books, you can trust them. Now, why is that important? Don't you think the American people or you as taxpayers deserve to know that, hey, anytime I look at their books, they're pretty darn good. So when you think if it matters or not to the mission, think about why internal controls matters to the mission. Because the American people have confidence that what we say we're spending to deliver on that mission. And that they're getting value for the dollar. And then the last thing is data. So we need consistent data across the department. Is today an apple as an apple across the department? No. Do you know how much time we waste talking about, well, what does it mean to you? Well, it's in that field, yeah, but we don't use that field for that. So what do we have to do instead? Rather than hit a button, what do? Manual data calls. And waste a lot of time, energy, and effort. Again, we're in the transaction business of moving data around rather than using the data to make decisions. So, as we modernize our systems, there's how many fields? 19 of them or 17 of them? 17 to 19 of them. Every time I think I've got it, they change it. That DHS is going to use that says, if you put something in this field, this is what it means. And we're going to pull it from a system of record, and we're going to use it. And then you're going to go, well, that's not right. And I'm going to say, well, you better fix it, because we're going to use it to make decisions. And you may be on the winning end of that, or you may be on the losing end of that. So, that's what I mean by the first one. The second one is, we need to operationalize innovation and acquisition. That's a mouthful. What does that mean? So I'm sure Nina and them talked about what they call acquisition, innovation in motion, or AIM. It was driven by the fact that when I first got to be the Deputy Undersecretary and Soraya became the procurement officer, we get about a letter a week from these business councils in the Beltway, and all of them said the same thing. They said, hey, we don't understand where you're going, what you're doing, and we don't know how to help you, and oh, by the way, you're very difficult to deal with. Now, people go, well, they're contractors, who cares? But they're our mission partners too, right? Can't do the job without our contractors. So we set off to say, okay, how can we do better? How can we engage industry better? So we started these acquisition innovation roundtables, where we sit down with industry and solve real problems. And I think someone asked Rich earlier about security clearances. Did someone ask him? Was that what he was talking about when I walked in here? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you think industry is happy with our security process? Well, part of it was they didn't understand. They didn't understand how our process worked. Part of it was that if you went to FEMA, there was a certain policy. If you went over to TSA, there was another policy. And if you went to the Secret Service, who's very special, there's another policy. So part of it was educating them, and part of it was saying, how can we do better? One of them being simplify our policies down. So when I talk about acquisition innovation roundtables, that's what I'm talking about. Real problems, real solutions. And then I'm sure Nina talked to you a little bit about the PIL, the Procurement Innovation Lab, where we've got a small group of folks and we take an acquisition challenge, and rather than say, hey, we need legislation, we need to go change policy, we just use the rules to our advantage. And try things. And put what I tell them every day, put your toe on the line. Don't go over the line, but you push your toe on the line every day and push the line as hard as you can. And it's making a real difference. We're delivering smarter, better, faster, and at less cost. So much so that that Procurement Innovation Lab has taken off across the federal government. The last two, what they call PIL boot camps, which is where you come to learn about it, have been with industry and other federal partners. So it's working. And then the other thing that we did that you guys should care about as it relates to simplifying acquisition is, what do we do with our appropriation structure? So we simplified it. So when I got to the department, and Stacy and them had tried to simplify it before, and the Congress didn't like it. Why didn't the Congress like it? Because they birthed it. They birthed this ridiculous structure where we had 76 different accounts, where an apple is not an apple is not an apple, where if you asked Stacy 2 years ago how much research and development we do in the department, she would tell you, I'll have to get back to you because I have no idea. Because sometimes it was buried in what they call an operation and maintenance account. Sometimes it was a part of an investment account. You couldn't tell what we were investing in. So we convinced the Congress to simplify it down to 4 basic accounts. So now we know an apple is an apple is an apple is an apple. Industry can also see over the next 5 years where we're going to invest in. Do you think that helps them? Because after all, if it's in the budget, it matters, because it means it's funded. So all those things, we're looking to operationalize that Procurement Innovation Lab. And what I mean by that is, we should have, rather than it has to go through this lab, we should have a culture where we embrace innovation and we embrace risk-taking. Well, what's the biggest inhibitor to risk-taking in the federal government? Think about it. What is it? What are you afraid of?
Consequences.
There you go. What consequences? There's nobody overseeing you. There's not 101 congressional committees that have jurisdiction over the Department of Homeland Security in some form or fashion. There's no entity called the GAO and the IG who are the best Monday morning quarterbacks on the planet. And then there's that OMB. None of those people matter. So yeah, people are afraid to take risks for good reason. How do you fix it? How do you fix it? Leadership fixes it. Because if you take risk and fail, and don't write this down, I've seen it every time I say this, people go, he said I can fail all day long. No. The difference between poor performance and what I call innovative failure. Innovative failure happens because you try something and it doesn't work, and what do? You learn from it and get better. The most successful people on the planet failed more often than they succeeded. If you don't believe me, go read a book. It's called, by John Maxwell, it's called Failing Forward. And in that book, he talks about all these famous people that you know that failed time and time again. So our job as leaders is when you fail, we go, we got your back. And we'll take the hit. And we're doing that in acquisition, as well as the other lines of business. So the third thing is, and John probably talked about this, is secure, reliable, modern IT. I mean, simply put, when you look at our IT system, and I'm not very smart, so when I look at IT, I have to look at it like the Metro. How many of y'all commute on the Metro? How many of y'all have ridden one of those new cars? I mean, it's got the little computer voice, right? It's got the little computer display. It's really cool, right? So I was in one of those cars the other day. And it was sitting on the tracks, not moving. It was all lit up, ready to go, but the tracks don't work. Just the same as IT, right? So you need the infrastructure, which is the tracks, right? The wheels are really the applications. The operating system. And then the pretty little car are the applications, like, you know, all those mission essential systems we have. Same thing. So while we've got pretty good cars, just like the Metro, they bought all these new cars, they didn't invest in the tracks. So it doesn't really matter that you got the bright, shiny cars, does it? I mean, it's a nicer place to sit and wait while you're waiting for the thing to move, but it's still not getting where it needs to be. So the first thing we got to do is invest in our infrastructure, and we have not done that. So we got to fix it. The second thing is those operating systems need to be modernized. Now, back in the old days, I tell you that I don't know why they need to be modernized, because to me it's sort of like the iPhone. How many of y'all have iPhones? How many of y'all got 10s? Anybody got iPhone 10? 8? So I got a 6, and it might as well be a 2 with my ability to operate it. So it's sort of like IT in the old days. Every time you turned around, a CIO would go, I need the next thing. And you go, why? Because it's the next thing. I've got to have it. But you're not using the functionality of the old thing. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I need the next thing. So CFOs who didn't understand that went, I'm not invested in that. That's nice to have. So we lag behind. Now we need things like Windows 10, not because it's the latest thing out there, but because it protects the system. So we got to get on with Windows 10 and a better email system and things like that. At the same time, we got to secure the network, right? The number one issue that keeps me up at night is our system getting hacked, because our adversaries are good and they don't play by our rules. So what's happened today with cybersecurity? How many of y'all see the little circle of death on your machine? A little blue circle of death? You know what's causing that most of the time? Your RAM, which I can't believe we talk about these days, but your little RAM is working like a little mouse as hard as it can. And the reason it's having to work so hard is those cybersecurity tools are weighing it down. So we've got to figure out a better way to protect the network so you can still use the tool. At the same time, we got to figure out a better cybersecurity posture for the department. You know how many cybersecurity operations centers we have? How many? Look at him. He's been studying ahead. 17 is the correct answer. Does that make sense? You think they all operate the same way? Do you think that they have the same policies? Do you think they're all 24/7? How many of y'all think they're all 24/7? How many of you think they work on weekends? But before you can think about consolidating them down, you got to have the right consistent tools and you got to have consistent policy. So we got to do what John calls crawl, walk, run. But we're going to get after it. At the end of the day, this whole thing, as a department, we need to think long and hard about, should we even be in the business? We depend on these lights to come on every day, right? I mean, you don't even think about it, right? Do you operate the electricity, the utility company? Does DHS operate a utility company? No, we outsourced it. Why do we think we need to operate our IT backbone? Think about it. And how do y'all play into that? Well, somebody's going to have to write a big check. And somebody probably needs to figure out the most cost-effective way to do it. So that's IT. Then mission-based space sharing, which is a simple way to say we need to use our space more effectively. And it's not just about reducing the footprint. It's about making sure that we're meeting mission needs. So we did this thing where we looked at 13 regions and we brought these folks together and said, how can we operate more effectively and get the most out of our dollar when it comes to facilities? So things like firing ranges. Do you think firing ranges are important to law enforcement? Who's the largest law enforcement agency in the federal government? Who?
ICE.
DHS is, right? So, if you take Boston for an example. So if you go to Boston today, you have the Federal Protective Service, you have the United States Secret Service, you have Customs and Border Protection, you have ICE, and the Secret Service. Do you think they all use the same firing range? How long do you think it takes them to get to a firing range? Up to 2 hours each way. So one goes that way, one goes that way, one goes up, one goes down. So think about the lost law enforcement time driving to and from the fire. If you just got them all together and said, what are your needs? And oh, by the way, there's a guard base 15 minutes outside of Boston just waiting for somebody to show up with a modular firing range. That's what I mean by win-win solutions. It's not about just saying I'm going to squeeze you into more space. It's about how can we operate more effectively. And that's what those guys are doing. And then the last thing, real quick, is we're going to re-engineer, notice I didn't use the word transform, our hiring system. How many, do y'all know how many business, HR business systems we have in the department? Anybody? Is it more than 50?
Yes.
Who believes it's more than 50? How about more than 75? How about more than 100? That's right, it's 99. Because I said we got to get less than 100, so they got down to 99. You think 99 systems is an effective way to run HR in a department? 99 systems and subsystems that feed them. You think that's a smart way to do business? Well, you must, because every time we try to do something and look to do it more efficiently, what do you think you do as components?
Push back.
As hard as you can. Because you're all what?
Unique.
You're unique and special, aren't you?
You take my system, you take my dollars.
Oh, there we go. Yes. So we're looking to do things smarter. Cross-component, governance, all of those things. At the same time, Congress gave us authority in 2014 to build a new cybersecurity personnel system. Now what I mean by system is the whole ecosystem, not just the HR, IT backbone. And we're going to actually revolutionize hiring and onboarding and assessing and all those things. Under this authority, which I don't think they really knew they gave us, but they did, we started with a blank sheet of paper and said, if we were going to design a new personnel system, what would we do? Well, we got rid of position descriptions. We got rid of the classification structure. We made things project-based. We went and bought the latest assessment tool so we can quickly assess talent based on the capabilities that we need. Different pay structure, a different performance evaluation structure to better meet mission needs. Now, you're like, yeah, you'll never get that done. So you can write this down too. In 2019, we'll pay the first person under that new personnel system. It may be at 11:59 on December 31st, but we're going to pay somebody under that new system. And once we get it up and running, people are going to see that it's real civil service reform. And they're going to come running to it. Now, every one of those things I mentioned, y'all play a part in, right? Take the new hiring system. I said there's a new pay structure where people have the opportunity to get paid more. What do they need for that? They need resources. We have to advocate for the Congress for it. We have to make sure we account for it properly. Everything I talked about, you guys play a role in. But at the end of the day, we'll get none of that done without the most important piece, which is people. You know, the CFO line of business, to me, leads the way in terms of taking care of people and understanding that they're in the people business. Their core values represent exactly what it is we're